I'm your #1 fan. There is nothing to worry about. You're gonna be just fine.
I'm your #1 fan.
Hiya! Welcome! So this is episode 3 in what is an occasional series of mine in which I review movies. Although there's a little more to it than that. Those of you who saw my last couple of movie reviews will know how I do it. But basically me and a fellow YouTuber friend will pick one of our favourite films that the other one hasn't seen before, and then we will watch that for the first time, then review it. First time I did Tombstone, Leroy Screwball's favourite film, and he reviewed my all-time favourite 24-Hour Party People. In the previous episode, The Pop-Tart reviewed another one of my favourites, The Conspiracy, and I reviewed one of his faves, The Running Man. And this time round, I was contacted by a great friend of mine, Rach Kappa, and she said, Jimmy, I like what you're doing with this series. Can we collaborate? Can you watch one of my favourites and I'll do the same? I was like, yeah, absolutely. What I've chosen for Rach is another one of my all-time favourites. I'm not going to tell you what the movie is, but I'll let Rach herself give some hints.
Mr. Barnes, this is Agent Starling. Please do not approach or apprehend Dr. Lecter.
Alright, thank you, Rach. But the movie that I'm going to be reviewing today is the one Rach picked for me, which is the 1990 thriller Misery. It was directed by Rob Reiner. I think in his earlier years was kind of more an actor and comedian, but he went on to achieve greater fame as a director. I think his other directing credits include, I think, Stand By Me, When Harry Met Sally, based on a Stephen King novel, which is ironic really because The Running Man, the last movie that I reviewed, that was also based on something that Stephen King had wrote, albeit that was written under a pseudonym. I was always under the impression that this was a horror film, but after watching it I would say there's certainly horrific elements in it. It's more a thriller, you know, a psychological thriller than a horror film, but with it being based on a Stephen King book, you can sort of understand why some people would lump it within the horror genre. Misery's two main stars are James Caan and Kathy Bates, and I will talk a bit about how I found their performances a little later on. But to give you a gist of the early point of the plot, and don't worry, I won't go into spoilers. James Caan, he plays a novelist, Paul Sheldon, and this guy Sheldon is staying in like a remote hotel in, I think, Silver Creek, Colorado it is. A really snowy, kind of mountainous place. And he's there finishing the manuscript for the next book that he's going to be releasing. We see like a flashback scene with him talking to his agent, played by the legendary Hollywood actress Lauren Bacall. He lives in New York and he's just finished his manuscript, so he's getting ready to drive home. He's a novelist. I think his main genre is romantic fiction, like historical romance, and his best known recurring character is someone who's in a series of books that he's written called Misery Chastain. She's like the heroine of a lot of these romantic novels that he's written over the years. The light bulb went on in my head there because I always thought this film was called Misery simply because that is what the male protagonist is suffering with throughout his ordeal. He's suffering misery, but I didn't know there was a double meaning, and that was actually the name he gave to his most famous fictional character. Paul Sheldon, James Caan, he's driving home, or he attempts to drive, to start driving home. There's just so much snow, he gets caught in a blizzard, crashes his car, the car overturns, and then we see him being rescued a little later on from certain death really. He would have froze to death or whatever, and he had injuries and stuff as well resulting from crashing his car. And it turns out he was rescued by Annie Wilkes, played by Kathy Bates, of course. She's a nurse, or she was a nurse, and she purports to be Sheldon's #1 fan. So she rescues Paul Sheldon, and as luck would have it, she's a massive fan of Paul Sheldon. You see in her home a little later on that she's got all his Misery Chastain novels up on her mantelpiece. She somehow gets him back to her place, which is, there again, it's still somewhere in this remote little town, Silver Creek, Colorado. She puts him to bed and gives him quite strong painkillers. Paul Sheldon's agent later on calls Silver Creek Sheriff's Office to not report him missing as such, but just to say, well, he should have been back home in New York City by now. And the sheriff says, okay, we can't class him as a missing person yet, but I'll search for him. And that's pertinent to the rest of the film, where the sheriff and his wife, I think, are trying to find this missing novelist. Annie, played by Kathy Bates, very obsessive. She accidentally spills some soup on Paul after she read his new manuscript. She disliked the bad language that was used in it. There's also been a recent Misery Chastain novel come out, and Annie reads that and she's devastated. She's like really angry and upset because Paul Sheldon is fed up with this character, is fed up with writing for her, and he's just killed her off at the end of this latest book.
Slipped away! Slipped away! He didn't just slip away! You did it! 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 You murdered my Misery!
Annie!
And don't even think about anybody coming for you. Not the doctors, not your agent, not your family. Because I never called them. Nobody knows you're here. And you better hope nothing happens to me. Because if I die, you die.
And it sends Annie into a really sort of violent, psychotic rage, really. She almost attacks Paul Sheldon, who, of course, is bedbound. He's got fairly serious injuries. He can't walk or anything from this car crash. What Annie basically does is coerces Paul into burning the manuscript for this new standalone book that has nothing to do with Misery Chastain, because Paul has killed off the character. She almost blackmails him, coerces him in a way to instead to write a new Misery Chastain novel where she's somehow brought back to life, or her death in the previous book is explained as not being a death.
You must rid the world of this filth.
You want me to burn my book?
I know this may be difficult for you, but it's for the best. Oh, my goodness! Goodness gracious! Oh, my!
She's being very threatening towards Sheldon. She's saying, you know, nobody knows that you're here. You know, you've got to get this book written for me. I love this character, Misery. She locks him in his room. He does find ways of sort of picking the lock later on as well. But she goes out, she gets him like a really old, rubbishy typewriter that's got the N missing. And she has to go out and buy him a lot of paper so that he can be instantly writing this specific new Misery Chastain book just for her, even though this was a character that Sheldon had really sort of been tired of writing for.
You're gonna write a new novel. Your greatest achievement ever. Misery's Return.
Misery's Return?
I know you didn't mean it when you killed her, and now you'll make it right. It'll be a book in my honor for saving your life and nursing you back to health. Oh, Paul, you're gonna make me the envy of the whole world.
So that's more or less it up until the point where I don't want to start spoiling important plot points and moments. Did I enjoy this film? Yes, I did. Yeah, I thought this was very good. I don't know why I'd never seen it before. It was certainly a film that I've heard of. The performances of the main two lead stars, coupled with this sort of remote, snowy location and this sort of always constant underlying strand of dread and fear, it just combines to make a really kind of gripping and at times harrowing and at times violent film, but it's done very well. Let's talk about the actors. Kathy Bates, of course, I believe she won an Oscar for her role in Misery as Annie Wilkes. Absolutely spot on casting, really, as the deranged former nurse and the obsessive fan. An absolutely perfect performance in many ways, really. And James Caan, who's the main lead, you know, the protagonist, if you will, he was also perfectly cast, really, as this fairly sort of softly spoken, middle-aged novelist, you know, a guy who just liked his peace and quiet so he can get on with his books. You know, has obviously made quite a bit of money from his previous books, particularly the Misery Chastain ones being so popular. I don't know how to explain it, but he kind of, James Caan, he looked like one of these sort of old school American novelists. It's difficult to describe, but it's like, oh yeah, I could see why they chose him. He just looks like what he's supposed to be. There was no jump scares. Like I say, I think a lot of people class this as a horror, but it's not really for me. It's more a thriller. I do like a good thriller. I do like something there's a lot of jeopardy in it and it's keeping on the edge of your seat. And that's what Misery did for me. It kept me interested. There were some pretty gruesome moments. Like I say, I won't go into them because if you've not seen this film, then you should go and watch it yourself and see what I mean when I refer to those. I'm really glad that Rach suggested this film. Out of the 3 that I've reviewed so far, this one is certainly my favourite. Do I love it? No, it's not ever going to be my all-time favourite film, simply because it's not particularly a genre that I'll watch a lot of. Like I said, I do like thrillers, but I don't watch a great deal of them. Although, ironically, the movie I recommended to Rach, you could class that as being in this genre as well. To give it a final score, to give it a mark out of 10, I would say, because I classed it very good, almost bordering on excellent, but not so outstanding that I am going to plan to see it again at any point soon. I will hopefully watch it again one day, and I'm certainly glad that I watched it for this movie review. But I'm going to give it, I think, 7 out of 10. I think that's a fair score for me personally. I think this is something that a lot of you would really enjoy. If you've not seen it yet, and like I say, this is a movie, it is 30 years old now, but I'd never seen it before. I'd heard a lot about it. The character of Annie is certainly one of these kind of characters that crops up in memes and in references in comedies. Is that sort of cultural icon, really. It's great to get absorbed into this universe that Stephen King, the novelist, and the script writers, and Rob Reiner, the director, have created for these characters. And that's going to be it, really. So, Misery. Marvellous stuff. Great film. And thank you, Rach Kappa, and I hope that Rach has enjoyed the movie that I recommended. What a movie that has been one of my all-time favourites for some number of years now. Quite a common film, actually, probably the most well-known film that I've recommended to any of my YouTube friends so far. But I will leave a link for Rach's review. Hopefully there'll be one of those at the top of the description. If you would like to recommend a film for me to watch, particularly if I can recommend one back to you, and then if you're someone who creates content on YouTube, then we can do what I've done with Rach here and with Leroy Screwballs and the Pop-Tart previously, and we can collaborate and review each other's choice of films. If you would like to do that, then all the contact details to get in touch with me are on the screen right now. But I'm going to go, and I want to thank Rach one more time for recommending Misery to me. Please go and watch Rach's movie review, and I do hope that you all join me next time for my next film/movie review. Cheers everyone. See ya!